And then on this very blank piece of paper, you need to write, I told you this would be interesting, that's because it is interest. A little consumer mathematics. This, ladies and gentlemen, is something that you will learn to either love or hate for the rest of your life. What is interest, first of all? Interest takes two forms, children. Interest can either be good or it can be bad and very bad. Good, bad. What is good interest?
Things you like.
No, I'm not talking about
You're
interest.
making money.
I'm not talking about
A bank.
personal interest. I'm not talking about baseball and basketball and swimming, not the interests that you have. I'm talking about money. When we
Bank.
talk money, what is interest? Carter A?
Getting it.
Huh?
Being given it from the bank.
Okay, yeah. When you have money, if you put money in a bank, you get interest. Bad, ladies and gentlemen, interest would be, well, when you borrow money, comma, you get charged interest. Did you ever wonder, how many of you have bank accounts? All right. Wade, you put money in your bank account every once in a while, maybe birthday money or whatever, you get some cash there. Let's say you put $1,000 into the bank. Can you not at any time, Wade, go and take your $1,000 out? All right. Did you ever wonder, how does a bank make money if you give it the money and it gives you the same exact money back? How can a bank afford to pay the people that own it, all those tellers, because they're giving you back the same amount of money you give them? What keeps a bank, how do banks make so much money? By the way, they do make money. Oh, well, nobody knows.
I think I do.
Carter Westphal?
When you take out a loan, they they take like a little percentage of the loan you get, and you have to pay for
Big
it.
percentage, actually. Yeah, here's the deal. When Wade gives the bank his money, the bank will give Wade, for Wade allowing the bank to have his money, the bank will actually give Wade extra money back. Okay, he'll collect good interest. And right now, if you put your money in a bank, I think interest might be at 2%. Which means if Wade put $1,000 in the bank for a year, when the bank, after the end of the year, the bank will give, if he wanted to withdraw all that he had, he would make $20 in interest because he gets 2% of that $1,000 back the next year. So he gets back $1,020. However, Parker wants to go buy, which costs about $1,000. Something.
Use a very old car.
Yes, a very junky old clunker. Parker wants to buy a $1,000 car. Well, he borrows $1,000. But in order to borrow that money, the bank says, well, since I'm giving you money you don't have, they charge you interest. And the interest that they charge you is probably going to be like 12%. Which means at the end of a year, Parker, 12% of 1,000 is $120. Parker would have to pay the bank back an extra $120 for allowing him to use that $1,000. The bank makes its money because of the difference of this. It has taken Wade's money, used it to loan it to Parker, and as a result, it has made $100 profit on taking Wade's money and loaning it out there. Have any of you ever watched It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All
What happens to poor George Bailey?
He goes out to New Orleans.
Just
He
before
was on his honeymoon.
Just before he goes to his honeymoon, him and his wife are in the car, and he's got this big wad of cash, and he's like, honey, baby, we're gonna go out there and I'm gonna spend all this money on your thing, and then all of a sudden he looks out in front of his bank, the place that he opens, it's called Savings and Loan, and there are millions of people, well not millions, but a couple hundred people standing outside the doors. You're like, what is going on? All of these people standing outside of his door were coming to get all of their money out of his bank. But poor George Bailey could not do that. Why? Because he's taken their money and given it to other people as part of their loan so that they could build other houses and do all that stuff. So in the bank, see, there's no way a bank would ever survive. If everybody that had money in the bank said, I want to take my money out right now, the bank would collapse because it takes that money, it moves it, it loans it over here for this guy to build this and that, and I mean, and it plans it out so that it has that balance. I mean, if a couple people take their money out, it's got that much in there. But if everybody did, the whole bank would collapse, and that's what happened to poor George Bailey. He says, well, don't take all your money out. He goes, I'll give you just what you need to survive from now till whenever, blah, 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 blah. And they do. They listen to George, and George survives and all that sort of stuff. But that is how banks and interest places make their money, is they give you far less interest than they charge somebody for doing it. For example, house loans right now are about what percentage? Everybody know? They're incredibly low, and they have been for a long time. Not as low as they were. But here's what you have to think. If you go, well, let's do this first. First of all, write down this. We are today, by the way, talking about bad interest. Well, are we? No, we're going to talk about good interest. Let's talk a little bit more bad before we go to good. All right, here is your formula you're going to write down. Interest with a big fat capital I equals principal, not Miss Lopez, times rate times time. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Most people, and I'm sure I was at your age, what is principal? Principal is just how much money. How much cash are you talking about? Rate is always a percent. Time is always years or months or whatever. Okay, and that's how much interest either you get or you have to pay. Okay, so let's talk in the bad sense here first. It gets a whole lot more complicated, and that is why we have to use calculators.
It's the longest math lesson ever.
Well, we had to do a couple of things. No, they'll get rewarded for it.
Oh, generously, yes.
Are you in the gym?
Yeah.
Do you wonder if we wanted to come in there and play something?
No, I want to know where the hospitality room was. I only know, I have Spanish really, so come in there.
And we still have space.
Oh, that's right, we have
Are you
that
guys
whole
playing
period
basketball?
before.
We
So we're gonna switch at
Not me.
10:30 and then 11:20. We were down.
Oh, there.
So I've got to finish social studies and English. No, wait, I have you after lunch too, don't I?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
English is.
About 6th grade. Oh, okay. So I just have to say social studies. Oh, I get
I mean, you can do math at any time, tell me when you want.
We will, we'll
Available
get
for today.
No, we'll go 10:30. I don't want to get them out of the rhythm that they've got used to as far as
Perfect.
doing the odds.
I also have to look at my book.
We will,
I think we're
we'll
doing
go in
this lesson.
What?
For science.
Oh, wait, are you gonna be, you're not here? Did you say you were leaving? No.
No, I just, where's the hospitality room for?
Oh. My latest and greatest idea was to have everything, not even down there, but everything in this big room right there.
Yeah.
And then the hospitality room could still be a meeting room B, but they could use the kitchen, they could just have the coaches kind of like duck in there. And you wouldn't even have to have a whole cooler, they could just grab a pop from
Fridge.
concessions.
Oh,
It should be right there, but you could have like, you could do snacks or something in there.
I had
So
chips,
we could skip the whole concession thing, we just
chips and veggies.
don't anything, yeah. I don't know.
Alright, we can
That's
talk, we'll be talking.
The other problem is it gonna be worth lugging all that stuff from one end of the building to the other, but you get one cart, I guess you can
I
do
would say, we have a cart.
set up tables and chairs in there. Should we take tables from the food court, move them down there, or just, The problem is all my chairs I need to set up, cold storage, with all the volleyball. I don't
We
even know
should
if I
play
have
sideways map.
Oh, even if I know I have.
No, I hit the
Oh.
ceiling every time.
That's
Every time.
Most annoying thing is that.
Sometimes I'm gonna hit the light.
The billing fits in my house.
Gym's available.
Nobody's rented it out yet.
They'll put that ball together.
Waves all over the ball, so giving them stuff.
Alright, back to the bad part of all this. Listen to this, and this is, your parents know this quite well, you don't understand this here. If you buy a house in Yorkville, what would you have besides the taxes? We'll get to the taxes in a minute. What would you say, if you said the average price of a house?
220,000.
Let's go $250,000, let's do that. 250 grand. Now, usually when you buy a house, usually you have to have a certain amount of that down, which means you can't just go and say 20% is usually the deal. So if you take 20% of this, which is $50,000, you have to borrow. You are going to borrow for this house $200,000. Okay, $200,000. You're going to go to the bank or whoever the loan mortgage people are and say, I need $200,000, and if you have a decent job and good credit, they're going to say that is great. Now, what percent? If they loan you this $200,000, you have to give them a little extra back for doing this. Right now, interest rates are at about 4%, and that is probably over the span of 30 years. Most mortgages are somewhere around that 30-year range. So, to figure out just how much interest you're going to pay them back, you use this little formula here. Interest equals, what was my principal?
How much?
$200,000 times 4%, which has a decimal at its point, 0.04, times how many years? 30 years. So when the smoke clears, no boy, I don't know that. What's the best way to do this calculator?
Yeah, probably.
30 times 4 is 12, right?
Yeah.
0.04 is 12. Or is it 1.2? It's 12. Yeah, it's 120, 2 decimal places. So I'm going to take 200,000 times 12. Which means what? I'm going to drop down 5 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to put a 24 there. No, that ain't right. It must be 1.2.
It's 2.4, not 2.
It's not 2 million. It's got to be $240,000. What did I do wrong here? Hold on a second.
It's supposed to be 1.2, I thought.
Oh, it's 1.2. Yeah. 1.2. So you just move the decimal point right here. I got an extra zero there. In interest, children, you will pay $240,000. That's just the interest.
Wait,
Okay? That is what you pay in interest. You still have to pay them back the $200,000 you borrowed,
Oh, wow.
That's so
which
that's
means
bad.
your $250,000 house at the end actually is going to cost you $440,000.
Yep.
We had like $250,000 when we bought the
I
house.
don't know how many people have $250,000 in their bank account. Not very many. Some people do.
Parents' house for 30.
Right. And by the way, I don't think $250,000 is not. I mean, that's probably average in Yorkville. I mean, there are people that are paying $300,000 to $400,000 on houses and doing whatever.
Mine was like 3.7.
I know a guy was paid $1 million for a house, but he did sell like $5 million worth of property.
Now, of course, this is not, you don't pay this all back in once, you pay it back in 30 years, monthly. So how many months is 30 years?
About 2.5. 2.25.
How many months are,
Two.
how many months
360.
are in 30 years? 360.
110. I don't know what I said.
160!
So you're gonna split up your $440,000 divided by 360, and I am going to use a calculator.
That is what I said.
if you take your $440,000 and divide it by 360, right, here's your house payment. Your house payment is $1,222 a month. Now, here's the deal, because I heard most of you go, that's about what you can rent an apartment in Yorkville or even a house for close to that. But here's the deal. I think I heard Tyler say this. That is just you paying your house. That is just making your house payment, your mortgage payment. Taxes, if you're buying a $250,000 houses, your taxes are probably close to $10,000 a year. Which means, to that, you're probably going to have to add every month another $800 just for taxes, which puts you in the $2,000 a month range.
That's too good.
And then you usually have to pay insurance on your house and all this other stuff, so, you know. So that is the deal with house mortgage / payments. And fortunately, right now, interest rates are this low, but back in history, I mean, this is historically a very low interest rate. I mean, sometimes these interest rates got into the 10 and 12% range.
How did you find the interest rate? Do you just know that? Or
So
do
well, you know the housing market. You could just Google it and say how much your mortgage rates.
Oh, okay.
Right now, it's probably 3.8 or 4% or. But could you imagine if at some point in the time you were paying not 4% but 10%, which would mean instead of this being 0.04, it's 0.1, which means it's 30 times this, which changes this not to 240,000 but to $600,000.
I'm not buying a house.
Then you're getting close to $1 million for your $250,000 house. If you buy a car,
I can just live in a nice car.
here's the deal. A lot of times when you finance cars, car interest rates, because the smaller the loan, the higher the interest rates usually are. Car interest rates can be from like 12 to 18%. That's why you'll see if you listen to car dealership advertisements, sometimes they'll run 0% financing, which means
0% APR financing for 2 months.
which means you don't have to pay any interest. But usually, if you go borrow money, you're going to pay a lot. Oh. Now, how much time do I have before I've completely lost everybody?
10 minutes.
Good interest.
Jump into it anyway.
Now let's just do the good interest. Maybe we'll get the calculators tomorrow. Just let me talk to you about this. Okay, here is the deal with good interest. It's the same formula rate, except there's two things. There's what's called simple interest, and it's very simple. And there's what's called compound interest. This is where things get a little dicey. By the way, you always want compound interest, and I'm not sure anybody does simple interest. Simple interest is still the same formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So if you have $1,000 and you put it in a bank at 4% for 3 years, you can use that same formula. Interest equals the principal, which is $1,000, times the interest, which is 0.04, times 3, which means you're going to make how much? This would be what? $40 times 3. Your interest will be $120. Which means in the bank, how much will you have? Don't forget, this is only interest, so you still have the $1,000 you initially put in there. So in the bank, after 3 years, you will have the $1,000 plus the $120 in interest. Okay? Now that's simple because it's called simple, or it's called simple because it's simple. Compound interest means this. Okay? And here's where people get a little confused, and we'll go slowly here. With compound interest, what they do is they take the interest every year, or whatever the time period is, and add it back to the principal. back to the principal, so you'll get more interest on it. And you won't see this until I actually do it out for you. Let me let you write that, and then I will walk you through this. And this is why it gets a little strange here. So let's look at year number 1. Year number 1. Okay, I have my $1,000 at 4% for 1 year. At the end of 1 year, how much money do I have? Well, what's 4% of 1,000 again? It was $40, right? Okay, so at the end of year number 1, I have $1,040. For year number 2, they take that $1,040 and they take the interest on that new amount at 4% for the next year. See, back over here, I was only getting $1,000 every year. Here, even though $40 isn't going to get me much more money and interest, I am going to make some more. If I take 4% of $1,040, I get $116 instead of, what did I get the last rate? No, is that right? Did I do that right? 1,040, 16, no, $46. I make $46 instead of $40. So now I add that $46 to what I started the year with, and now I have $1,086 in the bank. Then for year number 3, my new figure is $1,086. I take 4% of that, and that's how much I'll have in the bank at the end of my 3rd year. So I'm going to do that here. 1,086 times 0.04, 24 to 34. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait, how much? Wait, where was that? 24 to 34. I now have made $43.44 in interest. I add that to this, because that's what I started, $43 and what? 44 cents. Poof, poof, 9, 2, 1. Because of compound interest, how many extra dollars did I have in the bank with compound interest as opposed to normal interest? I made $9 more, because here I only end up with 1,120. Well, now, you laugh at that, and you say that's not very much, but here is, write this down, our last thing of the day. With compound interest, we have this. It's called the rule of, close, 72. We will finish this up because I got to get you here a little. The rule of 72 says this, and this is with compound interest. If you divide 72 by your interest rate, comma, your quotient, your answer is how many years it will take to doubles your money. This doesn't work with simple interest. This is only compound interest. And again, the words won't mean much until I give you the for example. Are you writing that down?
Yeah.
It's just me. It's just me. You writing that down? So here's what that means. If you earn 6% interest, okay, if your interest rate is 6%, if you take 72 divided by 6, you get 12. Take my word for it.
Okay.
In 12 years, whatever money you put in there will have doubled. So if I put $1,000 in the bank at 6%, compound interest, in 12 years, I will have $2,000 in the bank. Right? In 24 years, that will double again, and you'll have $4,000 in the bank.
Wait, 24 more years or
No, in 12 plus another 12 years. Every 12 years, what you have in the bank will double.
It's a long while.
So another 36 years, you'll have $8,000. Now, 6% is not very good. I think if the stock market generally gives you 8%. I think the stock market is at 8%. So, let's do this. Wait, wow. Does everybody want to share with me how much money they actually have?
Oh,
A solid 400.
Westfall, how much money you got?
Like 5,000.
Okay, listen to this. Carter Westfall, if he was smart. Okay, Carter has $5,000. CW has $5,000. How old are you right now?
I am 13.
He's 13 years old.
6-year-old at heart, though.
If he would put his money somewhere and be guaranteed that he gets 8% interest, which is not out of the question. If you put it in the stock market, I think that's what they figure it is. His money is going to double every how long? 72 divided by 8 is 9. Every 9 years. Okay, so at 13, he has $5,000. If he put it away right now, when he's 22, he will have $10,000 in the bank. When he's 31, 9 more years, he's going to have $20,000 in the bank. When he is 40, he will have $80,000 in the bank. When he is 49, he'll have $160,000 in the bank. When he's 58, he will have $320,000 in the bank. When he is 67, he'll have $640,000 in the bank. And if he makes it to the ripe old age of 76, he will have $1.28 million in the bank. And that's not working, that's not doing anything but taking his $5,000 and saying, here, you use my money, just give me 8% a year. I mean, that's doing nothing the rest of his life. Every 9 years.
Yeah. That's how I'm gonna become a millionaire. I'm gonna crash the stock market.
Imagine though, if Carter if Carter has $10,000 instead of this all gets notched up one level. So by the time he'd be 76, he would have twice that, which would be like $2.5 million.
Carter, you're rich.
That's not that much.
Carter, I think you know what to do now.
I think I'll retire. Cole has like 10,000 because he has cattle.
So just think of rule of 72. You know, if you could somehow make 10% interest, how long would it take your money to double? 7.2 years. You know, if you could make 72% interest,
1 year.
every year your money would double.
My dad used to play stock market.
Wouldn't that be something? Parker is going to say,